You're listening to the Caramel Apples Podcast, a podcast that dials up thoughtful, heartwarming nostalgia of all things great and retro in the golden era of pop culture and beyond. This week, we'll be discussing something completely memorable when it comes to finding talent, true talent that shapes so much of the retro pop culture we are most familiar with. So much of that talent was ushered in from the OG of all talent shows, Star Search. Are you ready to Orchard Trek Retro with us? With your hosts Kennedy Rizzo and Cooper Lee.
Oh, how you doing, Kenneth?
I'm doing good, and I am exhausted but happy that spring is here.
Yes. You want to tell the fans why you are a little bit exhausted? Do you take a second for that?
Um, Actually, I just got back in a day or so ago from visiting the Big Apple.
Yay! She got her some New York pie.
I did, and it was amazing.
Yes. And if anybody knows and has been acquainted with us for any time, they know that there has been a moment when we did a special segment on the special ways you can get pizza. So I thought we would share that with you all. You
That's
know
right.
that she made good on that.
Oh my goodness, and it was delish. It really was.
And she didn't bring any back for me. So
Okay, so then the caveat about that is Coop is finicky with her food, so
yes.
I don't think she wanted to dust the little spores and green mold off of it because
You would be absolutely right. So, but
yes,
I hope you thought of me at least when you took one bite.
I did, and it was bomb diggity. It was so good, yeah, so good. But
Yes.
not to go long on it, but just it was my first trip vacation post pandemic.
Yeah.
And it really kind of awakened things. Like, we've been locked
Mm.
down for the last almost 3 years. And,
Yeah.
like life just, it changed, it shifted.
Yeah.
So to actually go somewhere and it seemed normal again. Like there were still masks and stuff, but not like it was.
Right. Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the fact that, you could walk the city and, people were shopping and having fun. And I mean, it was New York like I remembered it.
So did you kind of feel like a fish out of water though? Because like you said, this was your first trip after being so closed in. Did you feel a little like exposed?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Because it's still New York. There was a lot of
Yeah.
people everywhere. And yeah, and, New York is cool, but it is kind of dirty. So, I mean, mask, hand sanitizer. I mean, I still had my stuff in tow, but,
Right.
I mean, it's dirty anyway, pre-pandemic, but
Right.
I don't know. I just feel like touching things and people bumping into you. Like, I mean, it's the city, it's what it is, but
Right.
it was a little overwhelming because it had been so long since being there for one, but, being
Yeah.
locked in and yeah. But I mean, I shook it off. It was pretty tight. It was good because, I mean, it was just like fun to be had, and
Right. Yeah.
it
Like
was
every
amazing.
second of every day that you were there, right?
It was amazing, and if I would just really need it longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but push pause, put a period at the end of that sentence, and pick it back up later, which is something we plan on doing. So it'll be amazing.
Well, I am so glad you went. I am thoroughly excited for you. And I just wanted everybody to know that you finally made it up there again. So
Yes.
good.
It's all worth it. The bagels and the New York pie. Okay, enough said.
So more on the reason for our show this week, which was, as you mentioned, Star Search. And that show is interesting because like the contestants, they would compete in a talent show per se, and it was featuring music and comedy categories.
Yeah.
It was hosted by Ed McMahon.
Oh
Ed
yeah.
McMahon. And
That's ugly.
and Ed McMahon, he was kind of like everywhere for a minute.
He was.
He was like on, I think it was Johnny Carson, which our data like Johnny Carson, so he was on that. I believe he did something like Publishers Clearinghouse. He did Star Search. It's like pretty much you turn on the TV, you're going to see Ed McMahon doing something.
Yes, he's the OG. He is a celebrity, a name you know.
Yes.
And it's funny you mentioned that because Publishers Clearinghouse. I mean, there's so many contests and all that kind of stuff now. Like everything's exploded into like its own spheres.
Right.
So what was Publishing Clearinghouse and Star Search back in the 80s, like there's 100 more of that now and something else. Like it's just watered down.
Exactly. Anything is times 100 now.
Right.
And so with Star Search, being hosted by Ed McMahon, this gave so many young talents their first big break in show business as they were given the chance to compete in front of a national audience. So there's a little bit of anxiety, I'm sure, there.
That's a big deal.
It really is. It really is. And everything was so green at the time, like you said, things are saturated now.
Mm-hmm.
Things weren't so saturated back then. So, the performance categories included singing, dancing, modeling, and stand-up comedy.
That's right. And it was kind of cool to see these hopefuls pop up on stage and in front of a TV camera.
Yes.
To showcase their whatever said talent. So, I don't know. Star Search, our mom loved it, like it was on TV, and
yeah.
I had a little more patience for it back then, because like entertainment was more wasn't as what's the word I'm thinking of? Like again, it was less of it.
Yeah.
Which because it wasn't everywhere, it made it more special, I guess. Like you were kind of drawn in because you're like, what's this about?
Exactly.
It's like, oh, this is a show about finding new talent. Okay, I'll sit and watch. What's this about? Even as kids.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now it's like, oh, it's 1,000,001 and 1,000,002. And then Z's are flying from your head. That's just how it is now. I don't know.
And you hate to take away from the people with talent because a lot of people, they don't get to be discovered and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that there's a way, an outlet for people other than social media and things, but at the same time, it's like, oh, it's a little overloaded. It really is.
It is. It's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like you said, Ed McMahon was the host of this retro gym. And this lasted a few years on into syndication. So I think he actually hosted, was it 1983 or 84 it started?
83, right?
Was it? It was early 80s.
Okay.
And his stretch went all the way to about 1995. So.
Wow.
Yeah. It just seemed really tailored to what it was presented for. Like it was like, okay, we're looking for new raw talent.
Yeah.
The audience was there, and they were there supporting. Who was there? Family was there, help supporting their loved ones, whoever was competing or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like Star Search was actually about that instead of like what we have now, which is more about the slop and drama that's going on in the judges' lives, or
right.
Even the talent tryouts. Like there's some cute stuff that you can find, outtakes or whatever, but they made a whole segment of that.
Yeah.
So that kind of ran together, just kind of bled into everything else. It was just kind of not so special. Really, the drama of the judges. It's like this is about supposedly for the new talent, not the, in air quotes, established people that are judging the talent.
Yeah, because it does almost seem like now it's just about them trying to be important in some way.
Yes.
Because they've already kind of, not that they've lost, their fame, but they're kind of getting overshadowed by up and coming. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a way to stay relevant.
Yeah. And honestly, I barely remember the judges on Star Search. I can't think of who it was.
Right. Me neither.
Yeah, but they were there to do a job. So they were calm, cool, and collective, like their host, Ed McMahon. Like, he's the name you know from Star Search. Star Search plus Ed McMahon.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, this show actually, we know names that spun off from this.
Mm-hmm.
That end up going, exploding into the pop sphere at the time. And let's see who's on the list here. We got, launched careers from the country music group like Sawyer Brown.
Oh, Sawyer Brown. Totally remember that name.
Yeah, let's see who else do we have. We got I think it was Sam Harris. He was a male vocalist.
That's another one. Yes.
Yeah. Another one, Darrell Coleman, I believe his name was. Yeah, Cherry Girl.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But before we go into like the names, we'll mention them here in a little bit. But before we go into the names, there was, I think, 10, really 8 categories. The 10 was because they chopped up the teenage and junior categories.
Uh-huh.
So I don't think those were every show. So I think it was basically 8 categories.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that was female singer, male singer, junior singer. So that came at the second half of the season. And then there was teen singer, which was the first half of the season. So there's the 10, I think, with those two.
Okay.
I think. Then there was group vocal, dance, junior dance, again, first half of the season, teen dance, second half of the season. And then the spokesmodel category and comedy.
Yes, comedy, which that one right there was probably the trickiest out of all those, because either you can dance or you can't. You can either sing or you can't. You're either gorgeous or you're not. But like comedy, that's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Because being funny, people have different levels of humor. So I bet you people were really nervous coming on there to do stand up.
Right. But like these people, they had iron will. They were going to do it, whatever.
Right.
So these 8 categories were contested per show, and the potential contestants auditioned to be there. So each of these categories, 2 selected contestants would compete. I do remember this.
Mm-hmm.
And you always had a champion and a challenger. So the challenger would, which is messed up, but they would perform first. When the champion would go after them. So in later seasons, they switched that. So once both the acts were complete, old Ed McMahon would reveal the scores, and the best average of the 2 acts won. So if there was a tie, a studio audience vote broke the tie, in which the case the results were revealed at the end of the show, which they were like, and so gets 3 stars. And then the other party, they get 4 stars,
Yeah, and any performer, must win at least several shows in a row, depending on the number of shows left in the season,
mm-hmm.
to earn an entry into the next round of the competition.
Oh.
So usually this was 3 or 4 wins in a row. But in later seasons, 3 match winners were automatically retired.
Okay.
So in that case, 2 new performers would compete in that category. And I think that would be the following week.
You're right. It would. So they, they drop breadcrumbs as the show played out each week, because they wanted to bring people, the loyal viewers, back.
It's the weather.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
No. Okay. Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
So yeah, like we said, we this was on the TV all the time. You could always hear that 3 stars, 4 stars,
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah.
I do think that's a fantastic memory, um, because like I felt like the grading system was a little bit more realistic.
Yeah.
Everything's so rigged now. Like you could, it's like, how do you even want to watch anything? Like even a good ball game, you
I
know?
know. Like you feel like it's yeah. Rigged is a good way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the fun would be if like they were really doing what they were doing and putting some elbow grease in to see who would come out the victor.
Right.
It's already picked. It's chosen. And it's just I don't know. I get bored with stuff very easily.
Yeah. And it's hard to really enjoy something like that when it's like, well, it does take the fun out of it.
Right, right. So this was Star Search was more organic, and at the end of each performance, as we said before, the judges would give, you know, based on the Star Search rating system, 1 to 4 stars. In
Mm.
the first seasons of Ed McMahon at the helm, but then later it changed to 5 stars. So same thing, it just, you know, whatever they got, and if they continued to win, then it would prompt them to go on into the semifinals, and then they could win some big cash. So
Nice.
yeah, again, it had a more organic quality about it, and I felt like the contestants weren't mean spirited toward each other. They seemed like they supported each other. Like we weren't behind the scenes, so it could have been totally different. But
Yeah, there could have been a lot of drama, but it didn't play out, right? We didn't see that if it happened.
yeah, total professionalism, which that was more of a thing back in the day. It really was.
Yeah. And
Um,
wouldn't they like put the spotlight on the person who won, like, and the other person
yeah,
would kind of go dark or whatever?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that could kind of be crushing to spirits. But as you were saying, it seemed like people were like, okay, okay, it is what it is, and we'll just move on with our lives.
That's right. You take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll go to our next venture, huh?
Yeah.
But so we just spoke about briefly about the semifinals. So in most seasons, 2 semifinal shows took place, one in the fall and the other one in the spring, prior to the championship show. So each semifinal used 7 judges. No scoring was used, and the judges' votes weren't revealed. But the acts that won the semifinals would then compete in the championship show. So on the championship show, winners would be the of the male vocalist category, female vocalist category, vocal group, comedy, and dance. And each of these had the potential of being awarded $100,000,
Mm.
but they did not guarantee a recording contract. So um, that's neat. I guess I don't know. Like maybe it was more for that small core. Hey, give me the money.
Yeah. But because it does seem like, well, um, a recording contract on top of that would have kind of like sealed the deal for them. Because,
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, they already had the national exposure, but to then have, like, I can't even think of somebody right off the top of my head, but to have a label saying, yes, you are definitely going to be our next talent that we're going to showcase, and we're putting out, 20 albums in the next 3 years, then they're probably like, yeah, we've really made it. So it's like literally, it was just the judges saying, yes, you have talent. And
Mm-hmm.
that's as far as it goes. It's like, oh, goodness.
Yeah, because seriously, back in the 80s and 90s, like, you can think of backstories on a lot of the stars that we did come to know
Right.
and love. And it was hard, like climbing that career ladder for what they were supposedly good in.
Right.
Contracts did not come easy. So, yeah, like what you were just explaining with Star Search, they're like, hey, we'll give you a little coin,
Yeah.
entertain us, and if something happens after that, fine. But, like it wasn't a guarantee. So
Yeah.
it's like those kind of shows, Star Search or some of these other shows, they have stepped back and absolved themselves from any responsibility if they didn't go to the moon and back.
Right. Right. But like you said, we'll get into some people who did, kind of, they became household names. Not even kind of, they did. So,
Yeah. Yeah, so as just as you said there, Coop, many Star Search winners from the early seasons secured recording contracts because they were that good.
Right.
Within weeks of the end of the competition. So at the beginning of our show this week, we mentioned briefly the first season vocal group winner was Sawyer Brown.
Yeah.
Right. So they were in the country music, and Sawyer Brown. People know who they are. And they got their
Right.
start on Star Search.
Crazy. Crazy.
Yes. The second one we mentioned was the first season male vocalist champion, Sam Harris,
Mm-hmm.
um, who had his signature tuxedo and tennis shoes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, our mom liked him. She was always rooting him on. She thought she wanted him to win.
Yeah, she did.
And then okay, so I mentioned this one earlier. He was the second season male vocalist champion, Darrell Coleman,
Okay.
with the Jerry Curl.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So those are three names right there that we are totally familiar with. They are synonymous with Star Search.
Right.
So that's kind of cool that they actually all the butterflies and nerves going on Star Search, and then they got to be on the radio, and it's like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that is nutty. It really is.
Yeah. So now we have our third season junior female. So this is the junior. Remember, we said there was actually 10 categories, but then like most of
Right.
the shows were 8.
Yes.
So this person that we know well was in the junior category. So the junior female vocalist runner up, that was Tiffany.
Redhead Tiffany.
Redhead Tiffany. Tiffany that was with the New Kids on the Block.
Okay.
Yes. Her name on Star Search, she actually went by Tiffany Reese.
Okay.
You remember that?
I do not.
Okay. I vaguely do. I think I do remember that because that's the way Ed McMahon said her name. Tiffany Reese.
Reese or Renee?
Maybe I don't remember if I'm saying it wrong.
Did you just want to fix that?
Is it Renee?
And that's what my notes say.
Oh, okay.
So maybe I don't know.
I'll just go with it because then my memory fails me.
Okay.
Maybe it's Renee.
Okay. Tiffany
Yeah.
R something.
I don't know. My brain, I'm telling you, it does selective work.
It's still on vacation. It's okay.
When's it gonna get back in business? Not this week, obviously. Now, like we said, Tiffany was the runner-up, though.
That's bananas.
It is, but despite not winning the competition, I guess she lost. Yeah, she definitely lost to someone else. Tiffany was the first Star Search alumna to land a #1 hit, and this is why we know her, with her cover of the top 5 Tommy James and the Shondells hit, I Think We're Alone Now. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that song, that's totally Tiffany. Like, I'm not familiar, and I think you're the same with the originals who sang that song, but
yeah,
how we knew it, our generation, Gen X knows it, it's their Tiffany.
exactly. That would have been the fact that it was a remake. Yeah, now that we're older, we know that, but at the time, never would have known.
That's right. That's right. And that's the cool thing too, because we actually know that she was opener. Or the New Kids on the Block opened for her. That's how big she got.
Right.
And then it switched, and then she became the opening act for them, which we get into. Like, go back and check some of our episodes about New Kids on the Block. We touch on that in that episode.
Right, right.
But it's so cool, the connectors. I mean, here we're talking about Tiffany. She got her start on Star Search. That's way cool.
Love it.
Yeah. So what else we got there? I know, what's your favorite category on Star Search, Coop?
Well, I'll tell you what. One of the ones that I really do remember was the spokesmodel category.
Here we go.
And with that one, they were awarded $100,000.
Okay.
But the twist was they would get a contract with a well-known modeling agency.
which that's a pretty amazing feat.
Yeah. I mean, because then they're walking away with a career and not
Hmm.
just, okay, be wise with your $100,000. They're like, okay, and we're going to add to it potentially. So that's really, really cool.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so the first spokesmodel winner was Tracy Ross. Do you remember her?
I do. Hmm.
Okay, I don't remember. The name rings a bell, but I cannot pull up a face.
Really? Okay, so real quick, I don't know if this even matters, but like the way she wore her hair was kind of like in a, you know how like Egyptian, you think of Egyptian queens and it kind of had
Yeah, yeah.
that triangle bob. I think that's how she wore her hair. It was like a triangle bob.
Oh, okay, okay. Not gonna lie, I'll probably still have to Google her. See
I know. Couldn't you
if I
tell
can get some
listeners?
features with the triangle bob, but
We could tell by the silence.
what are you trying to say? I've never silent. No,
Well, no, I'm just kidding.
you're like, you asked, so I'm just gonna tell you.
I did
So,
ask.
but in that, she did come away with becoming the leading actress to a soap opera that was called Passions.
Oh, that's 80s.
Yes.
Oh, that is very 80s.
But in that category, one that I do remember was Michaela.
Oh, she was pretty.
She was. She had a very different look about her. And
Hmm.
I think what's crazy is our mama, she was big on, like, our mama could have been a fashion designer. Like she could sew like nobody's business. She could put outfits together like mom. She was really, really, she's good about that.
She was the
Yeah.
Vera Wang of the 80s.
Yes, she had an eye, didn't she? She knew what she was doing.
Vera Wang Main Street edition.
Wow. And but she would go to like fabric stores and stuff, and I remember like catalog books. I think there was like McCoy's, oh no, McCall's and Butterick and whatever. So
Yeah.
there's these pattern books, and I remember seeing Michaela on
Yeah.
some of those patterns.
I do too.
Okay, so not losing it, right? Not losing our minds. Do remember that.
That's right. Uh-huh.
So that was pretty crazy.
Yeah. And
Um, yeah,
but real quick, because like this is a big deal because the 80s was about models.
yes,
I mean, I don't know. She's obviously making coin,
right,
so she's not on a Sports Illustrated magazine, but yeah, she's on. Like you're talking about patterns.
right,
That still work, whatever. So I don't know if she ever made it into mainstream things. I don't know. I mean, that's pretty good on its own.
right. Hey,
Yes.
um, was Tracy Ross? Okay, I think I do vaguely remember her now. Okay, I
You
looked her up.
Google. I
I
was gonna
did.
say she Googled.
I do remember her face now. Okay. So thank goodness for Google.
Yes.
um, so winners of the junior vocalist, junior dance, teen vocalist, and teen dance would win $10,000.
Mm,
Which that's really nothing to sneeze at. We're talking about kids,
right.
and that would be a nice little saving startup for them.
Agreed.
And so you know, since we've already touched on some famous names, let's talk about some other famous people that have come from this.
All right.
Um, everybody, I think, remembers Jenny Jones.
She did get her start on Star Search, didn't she?
She did, and it's crazy because I mean, she ended up. I think she came on as a comedian, if I'm not mistaken.
That's exactly what she was doing.
I mean, and here she ends up with her own talk show. Like, I mean, Jenny Jones show was amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Until it took some detours for the worse.
Yeah, yeah, it took a hit for sure. But at the time, that was when we would daily. I mean, we would tune in for Jenny Jones. Um, and not to get too far off from Star Search, there was Tracy Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
She was a famous singer. Billy Porter. Leanne Rhymes.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Shanice. I
Oh,
think she was big in the 90s.
she was. I love your smile.
Yeah. Britney Spears.
Mm-hmm.
Christina Aguilera.
Okay.
Beyonce.
Mm-hmm.
Conan O'Brien. Ray Romano. Adam Sandler.
He was on there.
Yeah. I mean, there's quite the list. I mean, that's what's really crazy about it.
Uh-huh.
Aaliyah.
Oh wow. She was cool.
She was cool, wasn't she? She was
Uh-huh.
she was a true beauty.
I think so too.
Alanis Morissette,
Okay. Okay.
Mark Summers. Didn't he do like that show where they had like slime and stuff?
He did. He was on Nickelodeon.
That's it. What was the name of the show? Can you remember?
Oh, our brother watched it, didn't he?
He did.
I
Oh,
can
I can't remember.
I can so see it, but I can't remember the show either.
Oh, okay. So we'll just move on. Lonnie Love.
Yes, that could be a longer pause.
Right. Your brain's on vacation and mine's, I don't know, Timbuktu. There's Martin Lawrence and Dave Chappelle.
Oh, and they're wonderful too when it comes to their craft.
Yeah, so I mean, even though, you know, um things weren't so watered down back then, some really big names that had some staying power, they are still doing it today. That's
Right.
crazy.
That is crazy. I
Came
love
from Star
it.
Search.
I
Yeah,
love that.
very, very cool.
Well, this was, again, more nostalgia because of something that our mom watched and everything. And it has a lot of familiar, famous names that we grew up with and seen blossom into the stars or the celebrities they are today.
Yeah.
Like I love Adam Sandler. I love his movies and
He's nuts.
he is absolutely 110% nuts. Dave Chappelle, he is too.
Yes.
I mean, there was a whole list of names that you mentioned there on your you know stuff there that it was just like, oh wow, and they got their start here.
Yeah.
So I mean, that says something. And then like all the copycats, like American Idol, The Voice, and all these new things. They're around, they do their thing, but
Yeah.
they're not original. They're not original.
And it's crazy because like it is just about singing on a show or just about dancing on a show, whereas this
Right.
was, everything was rolled into one.
Oh God. Yeah, it's like, do we have now?
Yes.
But I
Wow.
don't know. This was good talking about Star Search this week. I mean, nothing we're really going super duper long on because it was more something our mom liked and enjoyed. But we appreciated being familiar with it through her and enjoying how she was entertained by it.
Right.
So it was something that was very 80s, something very nostalgic. And you can't go wrong with anything when you go throwback.
Right. And I'm glad we were able to, actually take a few minutes today to do that, with something that was completely nostalgic.
Pretty wild.
Star Search is quite the reach with Ed McMahon.
Oh, you're that scoop.
And that's it for this week's episode. To make sure that you never miss out on another second of our Carmelicious podcast, meet up with us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcast fix. Bye for now, and thanks so much for listening.